Now we're going to talk about logical, also known as Boolean operations in MATLAB. Um, so the first part of this is just going to be an overview of logical and Boolean operations, and then we'll look at how they play out in MATLAB with vectors. The constants in logical Boolean operations are true and false. So the result of a logical or Boolean operation will either be true or false. So you only have one of two possible answers. True and false are also noted in MATLAB as 1 and 0. That can get a bit confusing. You have to pay attention to the class or the type of the variable you're talking about, and we'll get more depth to that as we go on. There's some basic operators. Those are the two constants. There's some basic operators. There's the operator equal to, which answers the question, are two values equal to each other? So I could do is 2 equal to 4? And that's asking the question, are these two values equal to each other? This will evaluate to false or 0. I could say is 4 equal to 4? And that will evaluate to true or 1. Okay. Other operators, so that's the equal to. There's also the not equal to, which is this little squiggly thing, sign is called the tilde, and it's located on the key that's to the left of the one key on your computer. So you do the tilde, then the equal sign, and so that's the not equal to. So this is, let me go up here, equal to, this is not equal to. So if I did 2 not equal to 4, that actually is true. Well, 1, if I did 4 not equal to 4, that's actually false, because 4 is equal to 4, and so the 4 not equal to 4 evaluates to false. So that's the not equal to. We have greater than. All right, so this is greater than. So is 2 greater than 4? That's false. Is 4 greater than 2? That's true. And so on and so forth. Is 4 greater than 4? That's false. Likewise, we have greater than or equal to. I know in math you're used to seeing it look something like this, but that's hard to do with the computer, and so it looks like this in a computing language. So this is greater than or equal to, and this is, so if I did is 2 greater than or equal to 4, once again that's true. Is 4 greater than, whoops, that's wrong, once again that's false, excuse me. Is 4 greater than or equal to 2? That's true. Is 4 greater than or equal to 4? That's true. And that's the difference between the greater than or equal to or the greater than. Likewise, you have less than. And so is 2 less than 4? That's true. Is 4 less than 2? That's false. Is 4 less than 4? That's false. And then you have less than equal to. is 2 less than or equal to 4? That's true. Is 4 less than or equal to 2? That's false. And is 4 less than or equal to 4? That's true. Okay, so these 6 operators are the basic ones. You'll see them over and over again. So let's, and there's some more to add to that, and I need some more space, so let me erase this. And I'll put them over here so that we can sort of keep an eye on them here. That's equal to, not equal to, greater than equal to, less than equal to. Okay. Now I want to add a couple of other things. There's the AND statement, which allows you to combine these operators. There's OR, there's NOT, there's ANY, and there's ALL. Okay, and so let's talk about each one of those. The AND statement, the best way to talk about an AND statement and an OR statement, and also a NOT, is to look in terms of what's called the truth table. And so let's do that. If we have 2 values, A and B, let me divide this up here. You can have 4 different cases. You can have A being true, A being false, and B being false. A and A and B. A and B. So if A is false and B is false, A and B is false. If A is false and B is true, A and B is still false. If A is true and B is false, A and B is false. If A is true and B is true, A and B is true. Okay? So these are the 4 different cases you can have with A and B, and these are the 4 different results you can get. So once again, if A is false and B is false, A and B is false. If A is false and B is true, A and B is still false. If A is true and B is false, A and B is false. If A is true and B is true, A and B is true. So with the AND statement, the only way to get a true result is everything has to be true. Which is also to say that with an AND statement, if any one thing is false, the result is false. Okay? Now let's go over here and look at the truth table for the OR statement. And I'm actually going to write that down here for sake of room. Yeah, let's do it this way. Okay. So once again, we'll do a truth table. But now we're going to have A or B. And so if A is false or B is false, if A is false and B is false, A or B is false. If A is true, oh, that's wrong, If A is false and B is true, A or B is true. If A is true and B is false, A or B is true. If A is true, B is true, A or B is true. So with the OR statement, it can be said that if any one thing is true, the answer is true. And the only way to get a false is everything has to be false. So that's the OR statement. Now let's go over here to the NOT statement, which simply all the NOT does is turn true to false and false to true. So it only works on one. So if A is false, not A is true. If A is true, not A is false. Okay. You also have any. Well, let's do all first. All is very much like and. What all says is all is true if everything is true. Likewise, all is false if anything is false. Used on vectors. This all and any very interesting. They show up in a lot of languages. Not a lot of people use them, but in MATLAB, because we're working on vectors, they come in handy. If you want to check and see if all the things in a vector are true or non-zero, then you use all, because if everything is true or non-zero, all will be true. If any one thing in a vector is not true or is zero, then all will be false. Likewise, we've got any, which is a lot like or. Any is true if anything is true. If any one thing in a vector is true, then any is true. Any is false if everything is false. Okay? These are the core Boolean operations, not just inside of MATLAB, but for Boolean or logical operations, not just inside of MATLAB, but for just about anything. There's also, which I'll cover in the course, in the MATLAB demonstration that goes along with this lecture, I'll cover another function, or Boolean function, which is also used in MATLAB. I'll write it up here, which is called the find function. And it's easier for me to describe how find works. It's easier for me to discuss how find works inside of MATLAB than it is to do it here. But this is a function that allows you to find things inside of a vector. So I'll get to that in the MATLAB part. The only other thing I want to point out are the symbols that go along with each of these. So with and, you get the ampersand. Whoops, something that looks like that. My ampersand is pretty bad. So ampersand goes along with the and statement. With or, you get the symbol is the straight up and down line, which actually can be found. Usually it's the key that's to the right of the right hand bracket. It's got the a slash on it. It sits between the backspace key and the enter key on most keyboards. So that's the vertical. It shows up on some keyboards as a double dash, but actually when you type it in, it actually becomes just the vertical line. So or is the vertical line. Not is the tilde. We saw that up here, the not equals to. So not is the tilde there. And then all and any are just the words all and any. And then there's also some confusion sometimes about the and statement. You can sometimes use a double ampersand, and the or you can use a double vertical bar. but we'll get into those a little bit later. That's a fine detail that we'll cover a little bit later. So this is a big overview of logical and Boolean statements. Knowing this is a basis core for any kind of computer science. So get to know this particular frame of information.